Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start the video off by looking at what Dell and BitGo had to say about Hedera Hashgraph HBAR. It's becoming ever more obvious and evident to me that Hedera Hashgraph is very well positioned to be the distributed ledger that the majority of enterprise activity essentially takes place. And it's for the reasons, or the reason, there's reasons, but we're going to look at one reason why this is going to be the case. And this is perfectly summarized by, I think, Dell's VP and, of course, an individual from BitGo. BitGo has associations with the likes of Morgan Stanley, et cetera, et cetera. We've done videos on that and the announcement of the BitGo sort of joining the Hedera Hashgraph Governing Council. And then we're going to be going and talking about something very interestingly. So once we've sort of made the case through this clip that was shared by the HBAR Foundation with you guys for Hedera being the blockchain for enterprises, we'll recap on the news that we looked at yesterday in regards to State Street, Fidelity, and LGIM. Three of the largest institutions in the world. One of them, I think, is the fourth largest, being State Street in the world. Obviously, LGIM, one of the largest in Europe, and Fidelity, obviously everybody knows who Fidelity are. We'll be recapping on that news as Hedera is now tokenizing funds from them. And we're going to be looking at a panel from the IMF, the International Monetary Foundation, or Fund. And they're essentially talking about what's happening in a switch that's been flicked. And they talk about Singapore specifically, and we know that Hedera is actually working with the Singaporean Monetary Authority, the Central Bank of Singapore, and we'll be showing you where we get all that evidence from. Guys, if what we've got to cover in this video sounds good to you, a like and a comment is always appreciated. If you're not already subscribed, do consider becoming one. Do check out the Patreon if your portfolio isn't doing well at a time when it should be. You're doing something wrong, and we can help you with that on a non-advisory basis. As promised, let's start the video off with this clip that was shared by the HBAR Foundation, so we're very much getting this from the source, of Governing Council members Dell and BitGo discussing Hedera and its kind of unique proposition.
To underscore something Greg said, is the fees for HBAR are denominated in dollars. I'm going to repeat that, denominated dollars and fixed. So if any of you have tried to transact on Ethereum or Bitcoin, you know that the transaction fees or the gas fees can vary wildly based on network congestion. If you're running a business or you're running a high throughput, high transaction service, that's really difficult to deal with. You don't know how much your business is going to cost you to run day by day. So one of the unique things about Hedera that we're seeing being adopted by use cases like stablecoins or CDBCs that are going to be high throughput is being powered or enabled by the fact that your transaction costs are fixed and they're low.
And that is certainly a characteristic of the governance model and the decisions that were put forth for Hedera that differentiates itself from many other public blockchains, because to the extent that gas fees increase 900%, which they have on other networks, outside of the control of an individual organization, because maybe there's a meme coin craze or an NFT drop, that creates the network, that makes the network effectively unoperable for a specific use case at any given point in time.
Yeah, I mean, as a longtime product manager and GM of various products, variable costs like that become the bane of your business case. And, a lot of times enterprise or use cases that may come, to the forefront for enterprises may even mask the cryptocurrency aspect of the service. It's transparent to the end customer, maybe a SaaS service. But from a product build perspective, that variability and thinking about how many dollars to put aside to pay your tariffs, basically at the end is a highly challenging issue. So when we looked at why we wanted to, when we joined Hedera, it's because we saw them as more of a enterprise-oriented sort of, you could build products on type protocol. And the variability, is put aside. The transaction rate growth was meant to be high. It starts to become more of a, dependable service. And so that's what I mean when we talk about getting boring. It can be predictable, not, highly variable.
So as I had kind of said there, I think that's a reason why Hedera is going to do very well. I ultimately think there are many reasons that make Hedera Hashgraph stand out. Some off the top of my head is the fact that when institutions look or enterprises look to get involved in the crypto space, it's often met with a degree of unease. Whereas when they find out, and I often find this when I talk to people, that Hedera is essentially ran by some of the largest enterprises in the world, they kind of go, they relax a little bit, and it kind of puts them at ease, if you will. Also, you've got the energy efficiency. Hedera is the most sort of energy efficient distributed ledger. Remember, it's not a blockchain, and it's the most energy efficient, the most scalable, the most kind of cost effective as a result of it utilizing a DAG technology, which is still a distributed ledger. It's just done in a slightly different way. We need to do a whole video sort of explaining the differences there. Whichever way you look at Hedera, and this is why we make so many videos on it and have done for a long time, even when the price was in the dumps, one reason we've continued to back it is because it's obvious in terms of its positioning in this kind of race that the cryptocurrency space is in. Now, yesterday, again, highlighting the obvious nature of Hedera, we looked at the fact that Archax had essentially tokenized State Street, Fidelity, and LGIM's funds with the likes of Hedera, Ripple, and Arbitrum. I played you that clip of me interviewing Archax's CEO, Graham. Great guy to follow, by the way, Graham Rodford, and of course Archax. Give them a follow. They're going to do big, big things. If Archax is going to tokenize somebody's fund, they have to get their permission to do so. You can't just tokenize people's funds. And ultimately, that's so there have been some sort of coalition there, and it's quite an obvious choice that Hedera is the one to do the tokenization. What I want to do is now play you a clip in line with tokenization and the tokenization of assets, money market funds more broadly, which Hedera is kind of at the forefront of, and we'll show you that Hedera has actually partnered with the Singaporean Monetary Authority to enable this. And again, going back to that video at the start, likely as a result of a number of things. One, of course, is the sort of fee model, making it one of the only blockchains that's even viable to do this. But what I want to do now is play a quick clip of the IMF, a panel from the IMF talking about the future and what we're seeing in the likes of Singapore, but more broadly across the world. They mentioned JP Morgan and things like this. And then we'll show you that actually Hedera is kind of at the heart of this also. And we know just based on this news that we had yesterday that's very much the case. So let's dive into this clip.
And what you're doing is we're putting together a process framework, a governance framework for banks to tokenize their asset on this network. For example, you can tokenize from money market fund to bonds, to equities, to deposits, and put that representation on the network and allow it to move between two parties. Today in Singapore, almost close to a dozen banks are already productionalizing their asset on the network. Standard Chartered Bank just announced, I think a few months back, they're tokenizing their trade receivables. UBS is tokenizing their money market fund. JPM is tokenizing their deposits. So you can see that switch is happening already. And from a market efficiency perspective, you are dramatically reducing the operational processes out of the system. So we feel that without going into the complex definition of what token is from a legal standpoint or from an academic standpoint, I look at it as pure a tech delight, complete tech delight. You take that piece of asset, put it in the network, where you can mix two things, the value of the asset and ownership of the asset into a single piece of token. And if I can get the network governed properly, you can move the asset among ourselves without the need for people to reconcile between databases. That's what is happening in Singapore.
That switch is happening already, and Hedera is largely enabling that. What I want to do is dive over to a tweet from Generation Infinity. Great guy to follow. If you're interested in Hedera, go give this guy a follow. If you're interested in not just Hedera, but the crypto space more broadly, he's going to keep you up to date on many things. He does some great Twitter spaces as well, or X spaces. Breaking news. No Vati documents show Hedera HBAR network being used for cross-border trade payment service as part of Monetary Authority Central Bank of Singapore trials. And we've just listened to the IMF talk about how this is taking place within Singapore. Novita also has integrations with XRP, XLM, and of course ETH network. There's a link below. If we dive over to this article, it's actually on page 6. I'll leave a link to this in the description. Where are we? You can see down here, it talks about a number of things, and it says AUDC progressed. Let's zoom in a little bit here. its commercial strategy to build capabilities through partnerships and continue its market expansion during Q1 of next year, with revenue, customers, and partners growing strongly. New projects include the launch of a UDD stablecoin on the Hedera blockchain, supported by a grant from the Hedera Foundation, and cross-border trade payment service as part of trials with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, i.e. the central bank. This is huge. Wherever you look, Hedera is there. Certainly within the United States, given everything that we've sort of found out. We'll do an interesting video, kind of conspiratorial video on everything. But Hedera is an obvious choice in my opinion. It's a blockchain that we're backing wholeheartedly, or a distributed ledger that we're backing wholeheartedly, and we ultimately can see the merit for it. We think that switch globally is being turned. It's already been sort of, or it's starting to be sort of pushed down. And Hedera is going to play a role in that. And that's going to enable trillions and trillions of dollars. And what the value of Hedera is as a result of all that is really anybody's guess. But my guess is that it will be higher than what it is today. That's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next one.